I opened my email after posting my thanks to President Trump for pardoning Tina Peters. Demons howled. Tim Johnson wrote, "She's not pardoned, you effing moron. Do you not understand how the law works, you idiot? Seriously consider suicide." Oh, the mail I get. Tim, this episode is for you. My mind races to the cold plains of Colorado. The kind of cold that bites like a promise unkept. Tina Peters sits in prison, a woman who had touched the forbidden files of an election gone wrong. I imagine sparse Christmas decorations in the warden's office, while overweight prison guards clock in for their shift. Tina had copied the records, preserved the truth of votes shifted in the night like shadows fleeing light.
The election records that I preserved, I'm the only one in Colorado that preserved the 2020 election records. All the rest of them in this state were erased.
For that, the state had chained her, called it crime.
Yes, you are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie, as easy it is for you to breathe. And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us, whether it be by the pen or the sword or the word of the mouth.
But truth is no crime. It is the bone of the republic. Donald Trump knows this. He once posted, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." He pardoned Tina on December 11th, 2025, a full and free pardon for offenses against the United States, signed formal on the 5th, before her attorney Peter Ticton's desperate letter landed on the 6th, pleading for mercy in what critics call a lost cause. I confess that even I have defended the president's inaction on a pardon, not seeing a clear legal path. Colorado, that rogue center post of the Union, spat on Trump's pardon. State crimes, they said.
Will she be released by the state of Colorado while this plays out?
No, there's no legal authority for any federal government action to take a prisoner who's in state custody.
If you are plugged into the matrix, there is no path. Elections are safe and secure. Biden got 81 million votes. Our country has not been usurped by traitors. The snake news repeats the feed over and over. But when you unplug, see the slime, a different picture emerges. The problem is resolved by revisiting the civil rights movement. Men and women with a different skin color were denied the fullness of their humanity, unable to go to the same schools as whites. Racist governors cried states' rights in defiance of federal law, while civil rights icons emerged. Fast forward to today, and we have the ultimate civil rights icon in the making, though no one seems to grasp it yet. Tina Peters fought for all Americans, none of them treated equally under the law because the black boxes fractionalized the vote. We all became less than human. Presidents before stood up to tyrants masquerading under the guise of states' rights and separation of power. Black men and women liberated through a show of force after the Insurrection Act was declared. If you have followed me at all, then you know that I believe Trump told us he left office in April of 2020 in shadow, invoking continuity of government under Presidential Policy Directive 40.
If you look at the arrow in the bottom, that's the lowest level, the one on the bottom, heavy red arrow. And that was my last week in office.
The quiet law that bids the government endure, devolving powers to the faithful when the center cracks. No fanfare. Just the president's word, secret as a loaded rifle in the night. This was war, hidden but real. Not the thunder of Gettysburg, but the soft coo of rigged tallies and silenced witnesses. Antifa's designation as a terrorist organization had shown the way, where anarchists and their funders had been traced to Venezuelan narcs. Another designated terrorist organization, both tied to Smartmatic machines. They contain the slave master's code, toppling countries without a single shot fired. All laid bare like guts on a table. An important nexus point? Eric Coomer, the Dominion whisperer with his Antifa Inc., lurked as one of the Smartmatic architects, his hands deep in the fraud's dark weave, while Peters paid the price for pulling the thread. Now she, the clerk who cracked the code through sheer courage, rotted for her virtue, exposing the treason Coomer and his kind had wrought. Trump had vowed it plain. Truckloads of evidence coming.
The election was rigged in 2020. We have all the ammunition, all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It's coming out.
Just days later, on the 15th, Trump stood at the podium and laid it bare.
The governor of Colorado is a weak and pathetic man who was run by Tren de Aragua, the criminals from Venezuela, took over sections of Colorado, and he was afraid to do anything. But he puts Tina in jail for 9 years because she caught people cheating.
That same day, he signed the order classifying fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction. Do you see the threads coming together? Tina is a hostage to illegitimate usurpers, aiders, and abettors, with captured courts playing the delay game as her body and mind withers. Plugged into the matrix, Tina must wait. Unplugged from the lie, Tina can be rescued. The plan is simple. Liberate first, play lawyer second. Men of action have done so before, and that's the topic for today. The immediate liberation of Tina Peters, a plain reckoning. Step 1. Trump acknowledges the shadow continuity of government, live since April of 2020. That Fool's Day marked the fracture, the signal in the chart Trump waved after the Butler shot grazed him. Continuity of government under PPD 40 hums on until the mission of saving the republic is accomplished.
And that was my last week in office.
Bunkers at Cheyenne Mountain remain alert. Space Force continues to scan servers from Serbia to Caracas. No need to stir it anew. Just a quiet memo to the Joint Chiefs, calling forth any dormant commands to loyal generals. This cracked the vaults, presidential emergency action documents, the veiled scripts for unbroken rule and crisis. With continuity of government enduring, Trump, our republic, holds a wartime edge, though bent under the weight of its own shadows. Woven tight with continuity of government secrecy, the Insurrection Act stands ready. That blunt tool from Washington's time, known to the public like a rifle in plain sight. No hidden signals here. A proclamation could rally the people, make the move clear as day. Trump could blend them. Continuity of government for the unseen hand, guiding from the depths while the act brought troops to the surface, federalizing the guard without a governor's nod. This dual strike pierces obstacles, posse comitatus yielding under the act's weight, public eyes seeing justice march, not lurk. We know that the posse comitatus act serves as a bar on troops policing civilians. Trump had spoken of the Insurrection Act often, the fire in his voice a match to dry grass.
George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Grover Cleveland, George Bush, and others all used the armed forces to keep domestic order and peace.
Trump laid the conditions bare. If people died while judges or mayors held up the law, he could act. Tina is dying in a cell while lawlessness abounds. Policing civilians is one thing. What about policing the police? Or deposing prison guards? Or a warden? What does history say about a conflict between a commander-in-chief and a governor offering defiance? President Dwight D. Eisenhower at Little Rock in 1957. Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus called out his state's National Guard to bar 9 black students, the Little Rock 9, from entering Central High School, defying the Supreme Court's Brown versus Board of Education ruling that ended school segregation. Eisenhower federalized the Arkansas Guard, removing it from Faubus's control, and sent 1,000 paratroopers from the 101st Airborne Division. Federal troops escorted the students past hostile crowds and local police who had failed to maintain order, directly overriding state resistance. For 9 individuals whose rights were violated, the Insurrection Act was invoked. Force crushed Arkansas. So too at the University of Mississippi in 1962. President John F. Kennedy deployed over 30,000 troops, after Mississippi Governor Ross Barnett used state police and highway patrol to block black student James Meredith from enrolling, defying federal court orders.
James H. Meredith is formally enrolled at the University of Mississippi, ending one chapter in the federal government's efforts to desegregate the university. The town of Oxford is an armed camp, following riots that accompanied the registration of the first Negro in the university's 118-year history. Much of this film record was destroyed when our cameraman, Gordon Yoder, was attacked, but he did salvage pictures of Governor Ross Barnett at the scene. The governor fought the court order long and bitterly before modifying his stand, saying Mississippi was overpowered by the federal government.
No man, however prominent or powerful, and no mob, however unruly or boisterous, is entitled to defy.
Nearly 6,000 troops patrol Oxford to maintain order, and arrests mount to more than 200 as smaller disturbances erupt the next day. Former Major General Edwin Walker, who came here from his home in Texas, is put under arrest and held in high bail on charges of inciting insurrection. He was flown to a federal prison hospital as relative calm settled on the town in the greatest crisis the South has faced since the Civil War.
Yes, even for one individual whose rights were violated, the Insurrection Act was invoked. Force crushed Mississippi. I say Tina is just as worthy. You see, the Help America Vote Act is civil rights legislation. The laws are already on the books. But where is the enforcement? As Fulton County admits, 315,000 votes were improperly counted. Now, think on this. Fulton County and Mesa County both use Dominion. Both have the same rig code. And at the University of Alabama in 1963, Governor George Wallace personally stood in the schoolhouse door, backed by Alabama state troopers, to prevent two black students, Vivian Malone and James Hood, from registering.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
The Deputy Attorney General of the United States. Proclamation, Governor, was signed by the President within the last hour.
And now, being mindful of my duties and responsibilities under the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Alabama, do hereby denounce and forbid this illegal and unwarranted action by the central government.
Sound familiar?
Tina Peters is coming with us. Will she be released by the state of Colorado while this plays out?
No, there's no legal authority for any federal government action.
I take it from that statement that you are going to stand in that door and that you are not going to carry out the orders of this court, and that you are going to resist us from doing so. Is that correct?
I stand upon the statement.
The consequences of your stand must rest with you. The choice is yours. I would ask you once again to responsibly step aside, and if you do not, I'm going to assure you that the orders of those courts will be enforced.
The National Guard is called in to enforce the president's order, and Governor Wallace steps aside.
This, then, is the moment when Governor George Wallace of Alabama walked away from the schoolhouse door.
Kennedy federalized the Alabama National Guard, which escorted the students past Wallace and his troopers, forcing compliance without major violence. The same would happen with the feckless governor of Colorado. Then there's the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary riot in 1987. President Ronald Reagan invoked the Insurrection Act for Cuban detainees holding hostages, troops prepared but not deployed, the threat alone bending the chaos. Step 2, the extraction. If Trump has the courage, he calls the Colorado Army National Guard to Title 10, 5,000 strong from the 5th Brigade. They roll at dawn, strikers humming on I-70, MPs in riot gear. No court in Denver could stop it. The act suspends posse comitatus like a lock-pick clean. The practical snag? State police barricades, perhaps a governor's frantic call to arms. The solution? State police aren't made for such a conflict, but if necessary, honor the rules of engagement, non-lethal, tear gas, flashbangs, the fortitude of men who know right from rot. Echo Ulysses S. Grant in 1871, suspending habeas in Carolina counties, arresting Klansmen by the hundred. Federal troops dragged them from beds, trial swift under martial shadow. No bloodbath, just the weight of the Union. Joint Task Force, 500 MPs first, quiet approach to the prison gates. Ward notified at 0600. Federal custody transfer per insurrection proclamation. If resisted, the guard seals the yard, helicopters overhead from the 100th Aviation Regiment. Peters walks out at 0630 into a Black Hawk bound for Buckley Space Force Base. No shots, clean, fast. Where the brave move before the storm breaks. The legal hurdle, a small one. Colorado's suit in federal court, screaming federalism, dual sovereignty under the 10th Amendment. States own their crimes, they cry. Pardon power stops at the border. The answer? Military tribunal under the Military Commissions Act. For unlawful enemy combatants, here, state officials as digital belligerents in a color revolution. Polis, Weiser, Griswold, Coomer, and Venezuelan indictments under the Foreign Terrorist Organization label. Peters' evidence, that unprecedented dump from Mesa County, proved it. The act lets JAG officers, 600 nationwide, 20 in D.C., run sealed courts at bases like Fort Carson, admit classified DNI reports, no delays from captured judges. The enemy's counter strategy? A habeas flood from ACLU lawyers. You see, Ex parte Milligan, an 1866 case, says tribunals are void where judges sit. The solution? The Assimilative Crimes Act. Fold state offenses into federal code on martial ground. With insurrection live, the prison becomes a federal enclave. Trump's plenary power under Article 2, Section 2, unlimited but for impeachment. The case Schick versus Reed, 1974, no conditions, no bounds. Ford freed Nixon preemptively. Carter amnestied the draft dodgers. Trump frees the truth tellers. The historical brace. After Lincoln's assassination, President Andrew Johnson's Reconstruction amnesties from 1865 to 1868 blanketed the South in mercy, but only after federal troops held the line. I'm not in the mood for mercy, just a firing squad and a lot of bullets. Check in with me in 5 to 10. And then there's the practical bind. Expect a public firestorm. Blue governors howling tyranny. Trump speaks at Quantico, as he did months ago.
You know what that means, 47, I'm 47. So I'm 45, 46, and 47, yeah, if you think about it. I just don't want the credit for 46.
I am the 45th, 46th, 47th.
And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can leave the room. Of course, there goes your rank, there goes your future.
The Shadow War revealed. April Fools, no jest. The people see, not coup, but cure. At Fort Carson and a dozen other bases, under canvas and floodlight, the judges in black robes of justice. State DA, the judge who sentenced Peters.
And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us.
Indicted for seditious conspiracy. Evidence mounts. Guilty. Peters testifies free, her voice the Republic's. Obstacles lingered, ghosts in the wind, federalism's wall, the 10th Amendment reserving state powers. That could be answered by the Supremacy Clause, Article 6. Federal law trumps, especially in war. Civil relief would follow, voiding the false judgments built.
Right, so we got the professor in here. Bring on there, sir. We got. How you doing?
Doing well. Hi, guys.
Good to have you, sir. Thank you for making time for us today. We've been playing your documentary a few times here and there, so I want to let the people know about your beautiful work and how we can help and inspire people to take some action.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Happy New Year, Professor. Grateful to have you on with us today.
I've got names, but I don't know if I've got names with the right faces. So
I'm Tim 17 over here up in the 51st state out of Canada with my autistic son, Matthew Q, by my side, who's been a big part of Q School since we started 5 years ago on this journey. I put on your favorite shirt today, too, Professor, just saying. We've never given up.
Great.
Well, hi, Melzie. Nice to meet you, too, sir. You're muted, Melzie.
Sorry, I didn't know I was muted. Hi, Tim.
Nice to see
Hi,
you.
Professor. So glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
So we've been playing, your documentary on Tina Peters and Let My People Go. We played that one time before too, and we're so excited to have you kind of explain what could happen with Tina Peters. I had the opportunity of interviewing her a while back, and so we fight for her here on this channel quite a bit.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and we hope that we believe the right thing will be done, and so we kind of talk about the different synopsises that could happen, and are grateful that you're in that fight too.
Yeah, well, feel free to ask any questions you want. I may not have an answer or a good answer, but I'll certainly think about it. And yeah, so
Yeah, fair enough too. And again, appreciate you taking some time for us today. And what would you like? What's the main thing you'd like to talk about? Again, I didn't know which thing to show of yours. It's kind of all coming together as one, right? The January 6th, we talk about 2020. Tina Peters connects all that. I've always been curious about the Insurrection Act, so that's why I've been really loved this documentary did about Tina Peters. So yeah, I know we're definitely gonna go down that road, but we want to also give you the opportunity to kind of what's the main mission, message and mission that we can move forward. And I know that's a big thing that we do is help people take action, right? And some people are want to do that, they just don't know how. So we have some great people in our community who are already doing action. Scott Russell's out in Colorado. He works with uniteforfreedom.com. They're out in Colorado specifically too. Not sure if you guys ever cross paths. We got amazing community. So we try to point people where to go and also inspire to take action too. And I know that's kind of something you've been doing, and we'd love to have other tools or guidance of where we can move forward that can actually create some change here.
honestly, I've done thousands of interviews, and I don't care. I mean, honestly, what's cooler for me is this is your opportunity to get out of me whatever you want to get out of me. So I would rather just do that than go through the stock. Here's a little bit about my background, because I've just done it so many times. I think your audience is, we've been swimming in the same circles where we don't have to retread any ground. So, honestly, if there's something that you're just curious about, or maybe if there's a question that you've been wanting to ask, that you've never heard anyone ask. Those are the things that I'm completely fine with. Yeah, so just pray about it and be led by the Spirit, brother.
All right.
Scott actually has a question that is a good one here. If we could pull up, it says, I would like to know if the prison has legal right to deny visitation, and if they do break the law, if there's any legal precedents covering visitation rights. Scott is trying to get
he's been trying to see Tina Peters for a while. That's Scott Russell up there working too, and he's tried to schedule multiple visits. So he was asking there the legality of that situation.
Oh, okay. So are we live now? And
we are.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I know. Yeah. Sorry to throw that.
I'm glad I didn't curse with my foul mouth. Just
we've warmed them up for that for you though, so don't worry about that one.
Okay, well, we'll start with that question. When you deal with jails, it's kind of a hybrid version of a private facility, and it could be informed by taxpayer funds, but typically, policies are set up at the discretion of the facility, right? So not everyone has the right to just show up and visit, especially in a prison. So that kind of goes without saying. My understanding from having actually visited her is that there are exceptions for her attorneys, or for an attorney that might want to take on a case, or like a chaplain type designation. And so, I'm sure she would like to have great visitation and be able to visit with anyone that falls outside of that category. I don't know if there's a legal basis for disturbing that. Because when you think about jails, what are you there for? It's a deprivation of liberty. So obviously there is a consensus over the past 200 years that you don't get to do everything that you want to do. You don't get to see the people you want to see. So my advice would be if you can work in an adjacent way with an attorney, sometimes a researcher or a paralegal or someone, a legal assistant, sometimes that entourage has been able to show up with attorneys.
All right. Thank you for that. Again, thank you, Scott, for trying to, try to see Tina Peters and all that you're doing out there also in Colorado. Much love out there. Appreciate you. Okay. So what else do we want to talk about?
I have a question about, I think that you had mentioned bringing out the 101st, or they had talked about that JFK had used the 101st Airborne, I think, to go in and facilitate like one person going to school. So one person like Tina Peters could have the Insurrection Act called in, So could you kind of go through a little bit about like the legality of President Trump doing that?
Yeah, I mean, so look, everything that I do, I look at history because a lot of us will, we wonder. I mean, and I like to focus on those pivotal moments of what happens when a governor basically tells the president to go pound sand, and that's what we've got. We've got here. And so you really have to start looking for examples and see if there's any threads that you can tie through from the old days to the here and now. And I was pleasantly surprised when I started seeing some of the videos of Southern governors that were barring the way. And so some of the clips that were provided in the liberation of Tina Peters' video were these rubber meets the road moments. And you can see the arguments are almost exactly the same as to why they're not going to effectuate the pardon, right? And it's great. Every tyrant, every Marxist, all of a sudden becomes an originalist. They become a hardcore constitutionalist when it comes to separation of powers and states' rights. They never adhere to that in any other frame unless it's to deny someone's liberty interests.
Imagine that.
Yeah. So really the closest thing that I could find was based in the civil rights movement. And so the first thing that you have to look at is, all right, is there a law that came from a court that needs to be enforced because the president is the chief magistrate of the United States? And in the 1950s, you're looking at Brown versus Board of Education, which was the case that said, okay, we're not separate but equal. We're going to force integration. And of course, you had all of these racist governors in the South that were like, not going to do it. And they argued constitutional grounds that this was a separation of powers 10th Amendment issue. So when you look at the corrupt Attorney General, Phil Weiser, and some of the commentary of people in Colorado, what are they raising? They're raising the same exact states' rights. The federal pardon power does not include, state crimes and convictions. So President Kennedy, President Eisenhower were officials that said, look, we just got a ruling from the Supreme Court, highest court of the land, and we're going to enforce it. And it was as simple as having a show of force. And so when you look at what government does and what makes it so scary and all those things, it's because they essentially have a monopoly on force. That's why we always check to see if we can do something, or people will ask me, is it legal? Because they want to know whether or not someone can show up and utilize force against us. And we want to know if there are good guys out there that will use force on behalf of the American people. It gets a little bit more complicated when you deal with a federalist system, meaning each of us have, we're sovereigns of two different areas, the state in which you're domiciled and you're a U.S. citizen. So what happens when you've got that tension where both the feds and the state officials have badges? They both have guns. And usually what you see is that it's always the military that wins out. And what was also interesting was in one of those examples, one of the governors had already secured the National Guard on his behalf to obstruct the president. And the president ended up federalizing that same National Guard and basically pulled rank. So these are legal steps, but it's hard for you to predict in a vacuum that one, they would just go along with the commander in chief, right? So I think there's always this external imaginative threat that if push comes to shove, the tanks, the guns, everything's bigger when it comes to what the military has at their disposal. And there's just greater numbers. So even if you had a ragtag National Guard unit of, 200, 300, 400, some of the figures that were thrown out there by Kennedy in particular was 30,000. Okay. So when I fast forward and look at what we're dealing with Tina, number one, she is a civil rights icon in the making. All right. You can't get away from that. And so people might get confused and say, okay, well, you had the Brown versus Board education decision that Kennedy and these guys were enforcing for integration. What's the law that you're pointing to that needs enforcement? And number one, you look at HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, which is civil rights legislation, all right, on paper. The reason why people, I think, are tired of citing the Help America Vote Act is because no one pays attention to the law when you're the bad guys, right? But it still begs the question, if you've got statutory requirements that requires a full auditable trail for those black boxes, and you have a key witness who has legal obligations to enforce both state law and federal law as it pertains to elections, and that's Tina Peters. And the Mesa reports that she ended up producing and publishing out there showed that not only do we not have a full auditable trail because of, the trusted build, which is basically a glorified term for erasing and deleting these critical records, but they also showed the destruction and alteration of over 20,000 records that were on that system. So you add it all together, it's a clear violation of federal law. But more importantly, to me, the Help America Vote Act is actually the weak sauce out of all of the statutes that are out there. A lot of people will focus on HAVA. Some people will focus on NIVRA, which is the Voter Roll Act. But the one that most people don't talk about is this thing called FISMA, and it's the Federal Information Security Management Act. And FISMA deals with the protection of cyber information that has been deemed national critical infrastructure. Well, who designated elections as part of the critical infrastructure? Barack Obama. Barack Obama.
Oh my
Okay,
God.
so when you think in terms of what that means, critical infrastructure, and what that means in particular to a president who can wield wide Article II power as the commander-in-chief. He has plenary authority to do all kinds of things in a national security apparatus or framework. That's where it gets really interesting, because if you were to tell me that a nuclear attack against the homeland was imminent, and Tina Peters just happened to have some critical information in understanding the threat, no one would blink an eyelash at marching the National Guard to that prison facility, extracting her, because it's a national security threat at the highest level. Now, whether people want to argue and quibble about whether election integrity is as important as the nukes, it's irrelevant for purposes of this analysis, because both are part of the critical infrastructure. The difference is we treat one like it actually matters. That would be the nukes. And we have run roughshod over the law when it comes to elections. So under FISMA, there's actually a stronger basis legally for the president to get her out of there and protect her. I've got ideas on why he hasn't acted. But that's another discussion.
So on that point, like Article 4, Section 4 talks about that our borders need to be secured, and we have, because of election fraud, our borders were open and invaded. So could that be something that could be included in, what was it called, the FISMA?
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 Yeah, so there's a really weird interplay at work here, because you can't treat the Constitution like it's a Chinese buffet and take what you want, right? There are supposed to be serious checks and balances against the executive power, and even Justice Scalia would tell you that Congress was meant to be the 800-pound gorilla. If they got their act together and were unified, they're supposed to be the strongest body. But the problem is what happens if you've pulled off a soft power coup over 20 years and the vast majority of that body has been selected, or they're just useful idiots? Because the president can't just willy-nilly do whatever he wants unless certain conditions are present. So, Congress has the power of the purse. So let's say that the president wants to do something and they decide to withhold funding. Constitutionally speaking, they can do that. They can bring wars to an end if they just stopped securing the funding to pay for them. But everything's been bastardized. Everything's been disjointed and destroyed through deficit spending, through the printing press, through the Federal Reserve, where there's really no accountability. And so what I'm seeing are kind of a lot of people that are playing lawyer over kind of like the right words or the right code or the right like magic spell, like it's Harry Potter. If I just throw out the right thing, then you would expect something to happen. And where you have to press pause is that we're in a time of unbridled corruption, where it's not so much about whether you've got the right black letter law or the right argument. It's really, do you have the force to effectuate your plans? And so when we prove and carry the day that elections are rigged, no one says, "Oh, thank you, Professor Clements, for spelling it out and giving us a clear idea of the maladministration that we'd be seeing." What they do for people like me, to the degree that I'm credible, is they just ignore me. And the people that are sloppy, they will write a story about their sloppiness and ruin their reputations that way. So there's so many different ways to attack. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want people to get caught up with the idea of, man, if we only understood Article 4, Section this, or if we only use this theory, because it really is irrelevant. It's whoever has the guns. It's whoever has the megaphone. And so you're dealing with really narrative warfare, where people are so duplicitous in their arguments. Tomorrow they'll argue the same. They'll argue the opposite of what they were arguing the day before if it suits their purposes. So I think my responsibility is, okay, can I ethically and honestly cast a vision where the president's conduct is lawful? It is being done by the book, and I think I've done that. But there are some unknowns, right? And I think the biggest check against the legal analysis that I provide is that we are in an epoch that is so similar to the Revolutionary War, so similar to the Civil War, that it's not easy to provide receipts and say, okay, show us the case that says you can do that, or show us the prescription. It's a little bit more difficult because this really is a kind of the end of the republic if he doesn't prevail.
Amen, Professor. Yeah, a lot of the things that, and I've watched you for years, followed you for years, and you're such a beautiful patriot and so strong, and you give us so much courage. And one of the things that Kyle, Melzie, and I, and so many other Q-tards out there, and I noticed that you've been on a few other Q shows, so I want to congratulate you on that. That we're forming that bridge or that link amongst each other. We're all patriots, right? We all bleed red, and we all want our sovereignty, our freedom, and we don't want tyranny anymore. We didn't ask for this war, but it was provided to us or whatever. I mean, the enemy has come in. I call it the infiltration insurrection. They basically infiltrated every system that we can even, imagine or think of. And we're seeing it unfold before our very eyes. And some of our journey has been, obviously, because we're named Q School, we've studied the Q drops for many, many years, Professor. And a lot of the things that you were just referring to and talking to, and we're learning from you. I think you're learning we're all bouncing off each other, but we're getting closer and closer. But ultimately, one of the most common themes in the Q drops on the Intel board is that military is the only way. And if you look back in history, and I know you love the history, and I'm learning more and more about the Constitution. I know more about the United States than I've ever dreamed of knowing about my own country that I live in. And it's thanks to this movement, the Great Awakening, and people like yourself that are sharing this information. And when Kyle and I, Melzie, and our fam jam here have gone through the Q drops extensively, we keep bouncing back into the original Constitution and the power that the military has, and how the military itself has become a buffer of the United States of America, hence taking the oath to protect the Constitution, defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the military did come a year prior to the country. So like what we talk about a lot here, Professor, is, and Q says sometimes you have to go back into the past in order to see the future. And I'm getting God bumps just thinking about it and talking to you here today. And again, I'm so grateful that you've come and joined us, because you have made a huge difference on many of our lives, including myself. And again, I want to thank you so much. But I dropped something on the wall for Kyle to bring up, and maybe we can discuss it, because Trump, we call him Q plus or 1020. Q plus in the Q drops, right? He's the boss. We call him the boss as a nickname. And it's interesting, that video that Kyle played of you, and you got so many beautiful educational videos, and you're way over the target, sir, way over the target, which is a beautiful thing. But when you had that clip where Trump says I'm the 45th, 46th, and 47th, I mean, it just goes to show that, and we've talked about this, Professor, that red pill, we call him red pill Biden. He was installed by the military. It's not the other way around. Like, they took the country from us. I think what we're living through is sometimes you can't tell the people the truth. You must show them. And we are being shown every single day now, especially with the Somalia fraud thing coming out now. It's almost like stage by stage, step by step, sir. But Q drop 14 is basically what you said in a nutshell, and in particular conditions, the military will step in. So Kyle, I don't know if you want to show that decode I did based on what Trump truthed on New Year's Eve. As a matter of fact, he truthed on New Year's Eve about taking them. It's at the bottom of Diggers, Kyle. And I'd love to hear the professor's response to that. And also, Professor, I did watch you. It was about a month ago. You were on with Dave and Rambo and the team over on News Treason Channel. They're doing a fabulous job. They really do a great job decoding the Q Intel board and connecting the news to the Q drops and vice versa, right? That's what we like to do here on a daily basis. But you did an amazing interview with them. And but Kyle, if you want to bring that on the screen and quickly read what Trump. And,
yeah, I got you right here.
And then we'll show the Q drop 14, and you'll see what I highlighted. All the red markings is what I highlighted, and you'll see where I marked it on the Q drop 14. And let's see what Professor has to say about this one. With
okay.
The 5.5 and the timestamp, which is loud and clear.
Okay, so this is from the boss here, DJT here, from December 31st, so right before the new year there, 3:55, I'm assuming that's Eastern time. We are removing the National Guard from Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland, despite the fact that crime has been greatly reduced by having these great patriots in those cities, and only by that fact. Portland, Los Angeles, and Chicago were gone if it weren't for the federal government stepping in. We will come back, perhaps in a much different and stronger form, when crime begins to soar again. Hopefully not. Only a question of time. I guess if it's ran by them. It is hard to believe that these Democrat mayors and governors, all of whom are greatly incompetent, would want us to leave, especially considering the great progress that has been made. President DJT. Okay, you ready to show the next part? This one? Timbo?
Yeah, those, and you'll see the takeaways I took from Q drop 14.
Okay.
And us, Mr. Clements. This one here is one of our most famous, most powerful Q drops. It was shared. The only Delta on the Intel board on Christmas Eve of all days was this one right here.
The 56, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And it's also General Flynn's birthday. Just saying.
Oh, right. It's funny too, Tim. I just from him talking, I had this drop also pulled up, so it's funny you said that. So you want me to do the thing real quick, or which ones do you want me to draw to specifically?
Well, you can read the whole thing, but really hone in on where I put the red arrows and stars.
Yeah, okay, because I was curious about this very drop anyway, so it's perfect. So skiff, obviously the double meaning there with the skiff, the small boat, SKIF, and then sensitive compartmentalized information facility, which I've always thought maybe the F's the foreign part, but we know the domestics involved too. Military intelligence, what is state secrets and how upheld in the SC? Almost everybody, of course, Q community talks about Supreme Court, but I know there's really special powers with the special counsel also. And that contract got renewed like in 1999. An old friend of ours, rest in peace, their soul is missing or is gone now, did a dig on that too about special counsel. I've always been curious about that too. If we have time I'd love to ask about that also. What must be completed to engage military intelligence over other three-letter agencies? What must occur to allow for civilian trials? Of course, we've talked a lot about Kavanaugh's hearing and stuff, and who was the guy that asked that? What was the
enemy combatants? Yeah, Kavanaugh and Graham.
Graham, because Graham was also was he JAG lawyer too? Is that what it was, Tim?
Yep. He's a JAG lawyer. Yeah.
All right. Why is this relevant? What was Flynn's background? We also talked there's multiple Flynns. Why is this relevant? Why did ADMR NSA meet Trump privately without authority? Does POTUS know where the bodies are buried? Does POTUS have the goods on most bad actors? Was Trump asked to run for president? Why? By who? Was HRC next in line? Was the election supposed? Should be a D there. I believe that's grammatically. It should be a D. D's rigging the election to be rigged. Anon did a great
under cheap. We did that.
Right. Anon did a great decode on that. If you look at the third-party candidates, if anybody doesn't know this, look at third-party candidates from 2012 to 2016. Many of them, they gained votes from that, and about that margin is what Trump took over for. The part of their cheating process was filtering votes from third-party candidates to the person they wanted to win by a small margin, right?
No, this is the juicy part, Professor. Listen, watch this.
Did good people prevent the rigging? Why did POTUS form a panel to investigate? I've talked about that a lot too. Trump formed a panel to investigate after 2016. They said he stole the election, rigged the election. Guess who didn't turn over their information? All the swing states. I don't know how that works out legally either. Has POTUS ever made a statement that did not become proven as true or fact? I always say the only one left there is the 2020 election. So what is POTUS in control of? We'd say the military, or maybe more specifically the Marine Corps. Wish I knew that a little bit better. What is the one organization left that isn't corrupt? Why does the military play such a vital role? Why is POTUS surrounded by highly respected generals? Who guards former presidents? Why is this relevant? Who guards HRC? Then why is Antifa allowed to operate? And this coming full circle, right? We got Somalia and the vote stealing, Antifa, right? This is your insurrection. Why hasn't the Muslim Brotherhood been classified as a terrorist organization? Seems like we allowed that to happen so we could do the Insurrection Act or something of that nature. What happens if Soros-funded operations get violent and engage in domestic terrorism? What happens if mayors and police chiefs, police commissioners do not enforce the law? What authority does POTUS have specifically over the Marines? Why is this important? And then was Mueller, I can't remember the math. Mueller was military and also Marine Corps. Was Trump asked to run for president? With assurances made to prevent tampering, how is POTUS always 5 steps ahead? And who is helping POTUS? Good one there.
Okay. Well, there's a lot there. There's quite a bit there. So
I thought you would like that, sir, because when you were talking about the governors and the mayors in regards to them going rogue, it's right there in the Q drop, and then you've got the comments about the military. So I'd like your thoughts on that, because we've always been trying to paint somewhat of a picture for our audience, sir, and we use the Q drops a lot to do it. We use parts of the news, the breaking news, to tie it to the Q drops, aka as Q says, news unlocks the map, future proves past. And with all this exposure happening now, sir, it's starting to make more sense that you're seeing step by step, not only how the Marines, and you mentioned the JAG officers in
It
your,
does.
yeah,
So there's a lot of excitement here.
it is. Yeah.
There's this, yeah. Like for me, I've always been very, very strategic on how I walk through the stuff. And it's weird because I've never avoided the Q stuff. Just, I think some people were just sheepish in not wanting to ask questions, because maybe I might give them an answer that crushes their paradigm. That's not my intent, but I mean, but there's also, I think, a responsibility that when you shepherd people through critical research, that you have to be very, very careful to really speak about the things that you can validate. It's fun to talk and prognosticate and enter in predictions, but if you're wrong, then you can actually hurt the very purpose of what I think we could all agree the Q drops are for, which is to give people just enough confidence about something that appears to be a military civilian alliance, right? And there have been many people in the Q movement as of late that seem to have taken the black pill, because they're so frustrated with the timing. So there ends up being an element of pride baked into, if you're not right, then kind of you have to take it out on someone, and maybe that means Trump isn't who he says he is, and so it's a very, very complicated, complex psyop, and I don't mean that in a negative way. You can't deny that that's what the whole point of Q is it's designed to be a psyop, and reasonable people can differ on whether it's a white hat versus black hat psyop. I believe at this point the fruit is there to confirm it as a white hat operation, but I think everyone, if they're honest, over the period of 8 years, right, that's a long time, probably went back and forth sitting there going, wait a minute, what happened when 4chan became 8kun? What's with the infighting between Anons and digital soldiers? And I think one of the things that I've wrestled with is that when people get caught into this is a plan, their analysis can become very superficial and dangerous. And what I mean by that is, if everything's orchestrated, if everything's part of a movie, it really discounts real collateral damage where real lives have been hurt, real people have been killed, real people have been in prison. And so I have to kind of always just guard myself, because there are people that will tell me that Tina Peters is out of prison. I'm sitting there going, what a horrendous thing to say. Or they'll tell me that there's J6ers that I knew that I visited in prison and they were there for 4 years, that they're actors. And so it allows, I mean, even the Charlie Kirk stuff, like I hear people saying he's not dead. So psyops are constantly kind of up for the taking, good guys and bad guys to spin and pivot all the time. So I just say this as a preface that when I talk to people about stuff, I really think that the truth has to be the North Star. And we have to be very, very sensitive to that. So when I look at the first post that you brought up with President Trump talking about withdrawing the National Guard, I don't want to speculate, but I don't have to, because the Supreme Court put out a ruling talking about there being something other than the National Guard. I think the term was ordinary. What is the ordinary?
That's correct.
Tool for policing a place that's in upheaval. And it's not what you'd think. It's actually counterintuitive, because the normal, ordinary course of enforcement would be to use the Marines, which gets to your Q drop, right? And which is really odd, because I think of Marines as being kind of an escalation where that's actually a much more badass fighting force than your National Guard. So it's counterintuitive. But you could adhere to the decision issued by the Supreme Court that first appears to undercut the president, but it actually affirms something that's much stronger, which I think he's hinting at. So that's my thought on that.
Well said, sir.
The stuff related to how far it goes or whether or not Biden was deposited there by the military, like, look, those are all great arguments, and I think they're supported. Those are, you can make a ton of reasonable inferences on why you're right. I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you 100% that I know, but I have an intuition that obviously something is off about the greatest red pill dispenser. I think where it becomes a little bit more complicated, though, I think it's easier if we just put Biden in a vacuum and said, okay, what's the deal with his face? Why does it look like a mask? Why does the back of his neck look elastic? Why is he taller in this picture? Like, all of that to say that, yeah, I think those are why you can make a reasonable inference as to him being placed front and center. The challenge, though, is how far does it go? Jill Biden, how far does it go? Hunter. I mean, because you've got all these other people, and then it starts to kind of defy reason that everyone is being placed in a world where it's just acting. And the reason why you have to be careful, because I know some of you would say, well, yeah, obviously they're all placed. Obviously, it's all central casting. The reason why you have to be careful, though, is because if everything's orchestrated, then there's no real culpability. And that's key. I mean, whatever Trump does, it has to withstand criticisms from history. And so if people are saying we're just watching a movie, it's like, really? Because if this is just a movie, it's fake. And if it's being orchestrated by the military, doesn't it suggest that there's more blood on their hands than the bad people that we've identified? And so that's the balance. I don't pretend to know exactly where the lines start and stop, but it's something that's worth pondering, that there have to be real villains in this for this to be a just information.
Yeah, thank you. I think we would agree strong with a lot of that. We always try to keep our stuff grounded information. We always talk about too, like, if you're never going to know ahead of time about military type of stuff for sure. Tim especially too. Tim's back on, bring him on there, Mel. But Tim especially, we've talked about how important 2026 is and rallying the troops. So this is something we always do. And I say it a lot.
Well, it's not a rebuke against you guys. I want to be careful when I speak for myself, because I mean, look, I know that some of the stuff that I'm covering now seems to be a lot more Q-centric this past calendar year than it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But there was also a huge gap in just the understanding of how the elections were rigged in the maladministration. So, there are a lot of people that have found their lane. And so for me, it's like, okay, I just want to make sure that my own understanding of the elections is as concrete as I can make it, so people can have confidence when we get into the battles and the debates online, that we're not making it up, we're not speculating, we have the receipts, and so that's just part of the challenge. That's not a rebuke or a caution. Like, I'm just trying to be transparent in my process on probably why I haven't done the types of videos that I'm doing now 2 years ago, because in some ways you can have an intuition that's proven to be true years later, but you all know there's certain people that you can't share things with because the timing's just right. It's just not right. The collective psychology of the nation just wasn't prepared. And so I feel like as a person with a bigger platform or with a name or credentials, I've taken risks under my name to say things probably faster than other people. Not to say that Anons haven't risked it even before me, because they have, but because there's that anonymous kind of buffer zone to shield and not really have to wrestle with the accountability of, if you're wrong, being called a charlatan. My career and everything was attached to who I am. And so I think that's why I've got such an affinity for the Anon community, is I'm kind of wedged in between, where none of the stuff that I'm talking about hasn't been hit on prior to me by someone who's probably way more informed. But it's okay, like I'm going to take what you said and your intuition, like a Joe Rambo or someone else, and say,
Right.
I think you're onto something. Let me use my professional researching skills, my professional experience as someone who's done thousands of evidentiary hearings, and see if we can separate the wheat from the chaff. And so it's really, really cool. So I've never been someone that dogs the Anon community. I really, there is a time where I have fun with it, and people might think that I'm making fun of it. I'm not, but the fun comes from people comparing me to Ingersoll Locke.
We can take it though. That's the thing, Professor.
Or someone will come up and pull on my hair and say, I know that you're JFK Jr. Like at that point, I'm going to have some liberties. I'm going to take some liberties with that and have some fun with it. But some of that you have to recognize is sometimes strategic for bad people to, again, discredit the good work that you all are doing.
We are having high winds. We're actually here in southern New Mexico, and I saw you in Truth or Consequences. I saw you and your wife, and also in Las Cruces a few years ago when you went around and toured, and saw your presentation, and I learned so much. And it infuriated me that it's like nothing's done, and I think that that's what a lot of people came out and we're talking, but it was frustrating to know at that time, like what to do with this information and how to move forward with making sure it didn't happen again. So I appreciate all the work you've done, and I love your wife.
Well, that's great. What are you in New Mexico right now?
Mm-hmm. Yes, in Deming.
Okay. Well, you're like less than an hour away from where I'm at. That's great. No, I worked in Deming for a spell, and that's part of some corruption that I got to see up front. Just the border is just insane.
It's a border town, but I do love it.
So, but to your point, like what do we do, or what's going to be done? I think that's one of the other things that I've tried to do. And, a lot of people kind of get upset with me when I say that, because Q, in some respects, has kind of taken on almost a religious quality for some people. I'm not one of those people. I get my religious instruction from the Holy Spirit, but I think it can inform the way that you look at anything in a healthy way. So people that are spiritually healthy can look at the Q drops, and generally they're the best Anons that are out there. And then you've got other people that have no Holy Spirit. There's nothing that's being downloaded or imparted to them from the true source of revelation. And then it becomes kind of this very, very dangerous thing where, it gets crazy. So for me, like the glaring problem that I saw with Q potentially was, if everything's on the keyboard and everything's in social media, then how do you receive the actual baton that Trump wants to give you when he promises you, I'm giving you back your country? Because we, the people, actually have to inhabit our institutions. And so it's like, okay, I know what Q is, and I know what the purpose is, and I understand the importance of critical thinking. But what I want to do in my own life is model agency that's out there in the real world, because I'm desperately begging those people to leave the keyboards, at least for a spell, and be the guy that cuts up at the county commission meeting, or be the person that's confronting a school board that's gone rogue. And there are plenty of key people that do that. But that's kind of the emphasis. You're always looking for the weakest part of any movement, and you want to fill the gap because you want to protect your country. You want to protect your family, right? So it's very, very intentional on I think how we do this. One of the other things that I've talked about is having a strong vision for the J6ers that were in prison, because I seriously think that they are the best candidates to replace all of the senators and Congress people that sold the American people out. Who else would get kind of a free pass? So, the people that actually went out there and kind of started mixing it up and suffered for it are probably going to be better protectors of our liberty, our lives, and our pursuit of happiness if they got the job description. So that's been a real problem that I've tried to solve, because I've done interviews with like Benjamin Wittes, who's a complete communist, right? He was a editor, I think, with the Washington Post at one point. He does the Lawfare magazines. He's friends with a lot of people that are actually mentioned in the Q drops that were orchestrating the legal takedown of Trump. So I've done interviews with this guy where I know I'm walking into a trap, where they want to turn me into like this person that is trying to encourage upheaval and overthrow of the government, when I know that the government's already been overthrown in certain ways. And so it's this delicate chess match where that no matter what you do, you can't enter into any conversation with good faith, because they're going to construct the hit piece. It's going to go out. And for me, it's gone out over 1,000 times. I've stopped counting how many hit pieces. And so it's like everything. When I say everything's a psyop, I mean everything is a psyop, both good and bad. Yeah, there's that. That's Benjamin Wittes. Yeah. The evangelists of election refusal.
Yeah. Thank you for all that insight. Again, we didn't take it as any strike against us. We pretty well grounded. We know who we are, but with this, we just totally confirmed that too, right? Because some people got lost. And you hit on all the topics, right? They can deify the information. Oh, Q says this, that's that. We always try to stay grounded. What a huge responsibility that it's been given to the citizens. And that's kind of what I was then alluding to, is like, Tim and I were rallying the troops like 2026, super important. But then there's that really interesting part where some people are totally disillusioned. And that's where we also have to have some sort of justice or something with this election stuff, because I know I personally can't rally more people to go vote if it's like, is it even going to be, not rigged this time? So we're definitely on board with that all the time.
Yeah, we are. In fact, we encourage people to get out and to get involved, especially in this next election, because it's so important. And, I have some land, and the code inspector came out and said I couldn't do some things. And he said to me, it's not my job to, it's my job to enforce the code, to enforce the law. If you don't like it, then it's your, as a citizen, it's your job to go and stand up and ask to have it changed. And that was such a concept to me, like, instead of being like, well, this is bad, or I can't, like I'm trapped in this, to think of it like, well, yes, I can go and have a voice. And, I have a lot of ideas personally, like for things that I'd like to see change. And I always thought, well, I'll tell them about it. I'll keep telling them and get them inspired. I thought, well, who would be better to do that than me, to represent the ideas that I have? So I think that that's true for a lot of us, that we have to kind of self-examine our part and how we want to serve our country. Yeah. And Q for me has really, it's helped me to understand that there was some type of a military plan going on, and it brought me into connection, into unity with a whole group of patriots that started to unify and become really like a family. And so that helped me, and we're just an amazing group of people that now feel like we know each other. And so Q has just been a great awakening for me, to help me to start critically thinking. Not that I think that anybody's going to think all the way that I am, or I'm going to think the way Kyle or Tim are, or you, because we're each unique and individual. But we are sure a powerful force when we come together and we're able to unite in that. And so that's been the best thing for me about Q.
Well, and look, and one more thing, sorry, Professor, just to add on to Melzie, but look, I mean, just because of the movement, the Great Awakening, and forming this unification, this bond amongst patriots all around the world, and which we've worked really hard at for 5.5, almost 6 years now. And we really focus on the unity part, and we don't have all the answers, but we're getting closer as long as we continue working together and supporting each other, loving each other, praying for each other. But through Aaron and Cappy, who we met on this journey, we have now you, Professor Clements, on our show, because if it wasn't for these kind of unification or connections, we might not have ever met, so God
That's why I
bless
love
all of
coming
you.
on these shows, man. I mean, like, look, sometimes people are shocked that, I don't think I'm a big deal. So it's like, it's not a big deal, but some people think it's a big deal.
Oh, you're a big deal. You're a big deal.
Well,
Trust me. You're
well,
a big deal.
but to come on, but I don't feel that way. And I just see it as like, look, we're all, you guys are divine souls that you never know who's on the up or the down, not, you just don't know. I've seen people that have blossomed into leaders of the movement and had podcasts with people that, they had 4 people watching, and then next thing you know, it's like, hey, can I get on your show? It's like I'm a nobody now compared to some of the folks that are out there. So I think humility is key, number one. But number two, our souls are up for grabs every day. And so I think part of having these conversations is I'm just not interested in having kind of a static, framework, because I know that I have blind spots. I have my own fears. There's things that I have worries about. And it's important to find other people and affirm them where they need to be affirmed and encourage them, and find that community. But the community in and of itself is an empty vessel. It's the individuals that imbue it with virtue and value. So, for me, it's always about, let's continue to use, whatever forms or platforms are as a ministry. Because that's ultimately what we should be thinking about, are higher things like, okay,
and uplifting each other, right, Professor?
Yes.
I mean, we have to encourage and uplift everybody in this movement. I mean, there's so many people that have gone through life, and you probably know this as well as anybody in this world, that some people have gone through life and never been encouraged to do something positive, never been applauded, never been patted on the back, so to speak. They've gone through a horrific kind of upbringing. But all of a sudden now people are finding this newfound family through the Great Awakening, which you're part of, sir. And I have to applaud you for not only coming on our little show, but all the other shows too that are somewhat Q related. But
It's my pleasure. I don't, you don't have to say it even a second time. Like I don't look, and I've said this on other Q or Q adjacent shows, which is the Q people they're light years ahead. When I say light, I mean light years ahead in how they're thinking about the world, the problems that we face. And look, you can say what you want about whether the conclusions that people draw are correct or not, but there's thinking. And that's what I love to see. The thinking is off the charts. I mean, it really is a war game that civilians were invited to take part in, and there are incentives built in. So whoever designed the boards and designed the questions, this is other level nation state craft that I've never seen at this level. And to just put the ego aside and just look at what is taking place, which is an organic seeding, because it's kind of like that movie Inception, right? At some point, if you don't plant the ideas at a level where it's almost kind of like you think that you thought of it yourself, it doesn't take. And there's something about that organic seeding of individuals that came to this as a puzzle or an itch that they needed to scratch. And then the hooks come in, right? Because whether you want to or not, once you press play for this game, you either play it or you're going to get played, or maybe it's a combination of both, right? Because it's just so fascinating to see what has emerged and what has developed. And so when it's weird, a lot of people just stay clear of the Q stuff with me. So I actually love going on these shows. But I think people are very, very sensitive to not wanting to feel silly or look stupid or be a part of some cult. And so there's always a risk when you go on to the shows. But for me, I'm confident enough in what I've seen and what I've researched that I'm sitting there going, all right, look, I think history is going to vindicate the
Yep.
QAnon people. And if I'm wrong, who cares? Because here's the deal: if I'm wrong, everyone's gonna wish Q was right. That's what I
there you
tell
go.
people.
Yeah, and don't
It's like,
forget, I mean, a lot of times, sir, we're talking about a fraudulent election. We're talking about infiltration, insurgency. We through the Q information, we're learning about posse comitatus. We're learning about the Insurrection Act. We're learning about the 51 Constitution Q drops, and Q drop 51 says one nation under God. That's a connection I found years ago, and I get God bumps every time if you want to find out about the Constitution. And what really shocks me, sir, and I don't know if you've seen this through your, years of being a professor and getting booted, and I pray that you get back in there and that there's going to be a new college founded by Professor Clements, because we'll all attend it, sir, and you can charge us $1,700.
Trump talked about American University. I'm waiting for him to make me the dean.
Oh, I can't wait.
Nice.
I really had visions of that, because I've been watching your episodes and following your journey for many years, and I got to pinch myself. He's here. He's finally with us live, and
well, you're gonna love this Sunday. I've got one
Okay.
that's in the hopper. I'm still editing it right now, but
okay,
I'll give you a tease.
Okay.
You get, but this idea of the use of the letters of marque and reprisal. This is a big deal. A lot of people don't talk about it, but recently Senator Mike Lee was talking about issuance of the letters of marque and reprisal, having a congressional act that basically designates that it's okay to use private citizens, private companies, to basically wage war against the cartels that are coming up from Venezuela. And this was always a tool that was used when our Navy could not compete with Britain and other places, and so they would have private sailors and vessels, and as an incentive for them to risk their lives, they could keep virtually all of the plunder and the proceeds that they got from the enemy. And Benjamin Franklin, George Washington said that this was huge. And so in Article 1, in addition to the powers of Congress being able to declare war, they also have the power to issue to enact letters of marque and reprisal. And so that is something that has just surfaced. And once you have a congressional action or declaration of that's saying that we're using them for this purpose, the president can then issue them to the appropriate civilians, maybe private vetted firms. Think of Elon Musk with XAI and giving him the legal authority to go on offense, to do things that our government can't do because the bureaucracy is either so layered or they're effectively compromised. So there's still captured parts of CISA, for instance. You can't expect them to do the cyber work. So I'm sitting there going, wouldn't it be cool if we gave Elon or someone like Elon more than an advisory role, but gave him a wrecking ball to use what he does to do cyber seizures of accounts? Because you're talking about cartels, and I'm not talking about just the drugs. I'm more concerned with the Smartmatic rigged election code and the fact that you've got 12 to 13 family members in the Cartel of the Suns and some of these other cartels that have more net worth than the CIA does each year. So you've got 12 individuals that have greater wealth than the total budget for our intelligence agencies. And so these guys are not ragtag idiots. They have, an entire economy at their disposal, both through the drug trafficking, both through fentanyl, through gold mining, cryptocurrency. And so when Scott Bessent talks about mapping out Antifa and mapping out all of these domestic terrorist entities, like, how are they doing that? that's a big question. I think they're using AI. I think they're using people like Elon Musk.
Military intelligence. Military
Yes.
intelligence. Yeah.
But here's the deal: when you talk about military in the cyber realm, it's very unique, right? Because the government is always 10 steps behind the private sector. The government's good at finding the geniuses, stealing their work, or giving them an incentive to continue to innovate because they don't want to be behind the 8 ball in the event that technology is acquired by our enemies and they've got a tactical advantage. That's why if you actually look at the Cybersecurity Act, there are legal ways to do penetration and intrusion into the cyber world that would be illegal for everyone else except for people at like the Rand Corporation or
Right. That reminds me of that famous Q drop that Kyle brings up a lot, coin, COIN. Remember that one, Kyle?
Yeah, about the counterinsurgency, right? It's got the counterinsurgency entire document up there. Absolutely, that's what we're going through, and you mentioned that too. That's 5th generation warfare, right? Taking over the minds of the people.
Yeah,
it's really
so,
kind of the battlefield.
That's the tease for this weekend. I basically did a deep dive on all things letters of marque and reprisal, because I actually do think that if you're going to do battle against 71 countries that have been taken over through cartel tech, that you can't rely on just the military, number one. And even the military is dependent on the Elon Musk caliber like genius. So there's always a fusion between the worlds as far as the cyber stuff. But it's kind of cool that Mike Lee is introducing that. I think Tim Burchett had a House bill that mirrored it in the House. And so something to think about.
Didn't they just renew some more contracts with Elon too? Speaking of Department of War, because the stuff that Elon's been doing with, with the space project and stuff like that, all the different things.
I don't know, but I imagine that.
I thought I read something not too long ago, sir.
I imagine Elon would be under a lifetime NDA and just reasonable inference that I know people that have worked at the national labs, like national laboratories in Sandia and Los Alamos. These aren't 5-year NDAs. They see certain things that,
gotcha.
Again, touch on critical infrastructure, and you take them to the grave. And so there's no way that you can have an inside seat to develop our satellite infrastructure and space dominance and be someone like Elon Musk and not have an NDA that he carries to the grave.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's logical thinking, sir. Yeah. And we just caught wind that Elon's going to play a big part leading into the 2026 midterm elections as far as financially funding the front runners, the Trump appointed, or what do you call it when Trump endorses so-called individuals? To me, it almost seems like they've got this kind of planned. I know we're not supposed to sit back and just watch it all unfold. We're watching a movie, but one of the things that we've talked about extensively on this channel here, using the Q drops, using the Constitution, all the information that we've deciphered ourselves and researched for ourselves, is the fact that where we're heading towards the midterm elections, it's probably the most significant, most important midterm election in the history of the United States, based on, leading into the 250th celebration. We've gone through 45, 46, and 47, like you had posted in your video. We've come to that point now where less than 10 months, we're praying. I mean, we kind of know, but we don't know. But the Trump version 2 administration has been working hard cleaning up voter rolls, cleaning up the census, trying to eliminate the mail-in ballot system, going after the machines. They were repurchased, by the way. You probably know more of that than I know. We've talked about certain things, but it almost seems to me, Professor, that it looks like they're taking those bites out of the big elephant and sort of paving or opening up the doorway for we the people to get and take power back in the House and Senate in a fashion where we have full control, where we can start impeaching, like, say, activist judges that have been popping their heads up for the last 11 months.
Well, here's a couple rhetorical questions, right? If we're all being honest, none of us could count on one hand the number of senators and congresspersons that we like or trust. Is that a fair statement?
That's
and
fair.
They're okay, so that's fair. So the first thing that I kind of wrestle with is, if I know that, and I know that the uniparty is as disgusting as any
Right.
Marxist Democrat, why am I getting up in stitches when it comes to retaining the House and the Senate when it's comprised of traitors?
But what if they're all? What if they've all been kind of captured? Sort of like, let's say, because Q says we have it all. They've been trying, and they're cornering this dangerous animal, and it's one big animal, like you said, cartels, globalists, and a lot of these. Even Q says 70% of them would be put in jail. What's that Q drop, Kyle? The 70% Q drop.
But that's my point is that we're thinking 10 months from now, and I'm thinking, what about the primary? Right? Because if you're looking at the general and you're looking at incumbents and you're looking at literal like slime, we're talking about the worst of the worst when it comes to American politicians. I don't count that as a victory to retain the House and the Senate with the current iteration. So why I say that is that I'm actually hoping that whatever disclosures of how captured these people are, whether it's the million pages they found, all of a sudden found, referring to Epstein in Southern District of New York, I think it would be imperative to have those people resign, be forced out prior to a primary being conducted. And perhaps there is an emergency mechanism for when that happens, where people can jump in on races and not have to be subject to the same stringent requirements of getting on a ballot. There are easier ways to get into a race. Arnold Schwarzenegger ran like a 2-month race to become governor.
That makes
Gary
sense.
Johnson in New Mexico ran for the Senate because there was a vacancy, and it was expedited. So how cool would it be if we had this huge disclosure of all of the horrible things that the uniparty has partaken? And then you get someone like Carrie Lake, who was screwed out of a governor's race, a senator's race, get her fast tracked, get her out of the Voice of America, and let her lead the state of Arizona. Like, there's so many people like that I wish would get in. If there is a plan, that's how I would war game it. Is let's give Trump more than a kind of a lame duck victory, because even if he gets them, really, if we're being honest, the only thing he's being protected by is another sham impeachment proceeding, because the House is not really doing anything to carry out his will. But if you had a bunch of MAGA
in the Senate
people, then you could start looking at repealing the 22nd Amendment.
Then
you don't have a lame duck issue. You've got Trump, at least the specter of Trump, being able to come back to shore up the bench. Because honestly, good Lord, 1 year has gone by so quickly. 3 years, I'm not convinced that anyone that is currently in the cabinet is up to the task of holding the center like Trump does. He's got a Washington effect where people kind of will keep him there because we trust he's a fighter. I don't think J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio have demonstrated that kind of Trump-like devotion. And so you have to understand, right now you have ravenous wolves, the Mark Levins of the world, the Ben Shapiros, hundreds of millions of dollars being put into propping up Ted Cruz or Nikki Haley, the old guard, and they're all salivating at being able to jump in there and fill that vacuum. So who other than Trump, honestly, if we're being honest, do we think here can put out an arm? I don't see it. That's one of the reasons why I did that video on another term for Trump. Or it's going to have to be someone as unorthodox as Trump that comes out of nowhere. And when we see him or her, it's going to make such perfect sense that it's like, oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's so true. And I know we're running out of time. It looks like we're running out of time, but I got this beautiful feeling inside of me, Professor. It's hard to explain other than I try to. I'm not the greatest at words and stuff, but it just seems to me that the direction we're heading and you know, getting closer and closer to the midterms and understanding the Constitution, the original Constitution, that is the Bill of Rights, and the importance of, and there was no two-party system back then. It was just we, the people. And I always refer back to, sir, is the inauguration speech that Trump gave to the American people on January 20th of 2017 with the military jag behind him saying, we're not giving power from one party to another. We're taking power from Washington, D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. It gives me chills to even keep repeating that, but that's crucial. And even though it's taken this long, you said something specifically earlier that really hit me good was, you know, why is it taking so long? Why do we have to keep uniting? And even though we're Q-tards and these guys are these guys and girls are these girls, when we come together, we're learning together. We're never going to allow this ever to happen to our country again. It has to get to a point where enough people see it, understand it, hence the exposure part of it, right? You've been down that path, sir. I mean, you of all people, especially, have been right in the throat of the beast, and we've watched it unfold, and we're so proud of you for doing so.
Yeah, well, let me push back on that just a bit, and the reason why is that I still am amazed and ashamed and sickened by what we allowed to happen in 2020. And so while we are riding the crest of this kind of ride where we have confidence because Trump's back in, what I've seen, unfortunately, from the vast majority of the American people is not a defiant FU spirit, but still this kind of, you know, I'm a little bit more confident now because Trump's in. I think we got to get to a place where even if Trump didn't get back in, that we are ready to die for our country. And that was really kind of my mindset prior to last November of 2024 was, do we have that 3%? Do we have that tireless minority that's literally willing to replenish the tree of liberty with their own blood if it was called for? Now, praise God, we have an option with Trump, and we've got all of these things. But the only way I think we get to that place that you're talking about is, and I'll try not to be crass or too provocative here. I don't think it's provocative. The gallows have to be built. Firing squads have to be assembled. Because if that doesn't happen, nothing will change. And so you want to be, again, sober-minded, follow due process, look at the laws on the books, say this is the penalty for the crime, and so all of that. But I still don't think that the American people have had that moment where they're sitting there going, oh my God, we were asleep, number one. Maybe not the people on this show, but we were still asleep. There's still a segment of Republicans that are probably still 80% asleep, where they kind of know there's this Q thing out there, but they don't entertain it. But if this is reality, if this is the Matrix, if we're unplugged and we see the slime, then that's huge, where it's going to come down to that tribunal, that execution, hopefully public, where people go, oh my God, not only was he right, he is a far greater genius than any of us gave him credit for.
Amen.
And they've got to see it. And maybe that's where they get their confidence, is this kind of out-of-body experience. Like, oh my God, for 10 years, I was completely asleep while the greatest, white hat operation was in the midst. It's going to take something like that. Because one thing that you said that's absolutely spot on about the significance of 2026. I might quibble about what I want to take place as far as the type of candidate that's available in the event that we have an election. But if we don't prevail this year, this year of Jubilee, right, the 250-year anniversary, the experiment's over. I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to win. We're going to prevail.
I
There's
agree.
just too many good things that are happening that we're seeing. But it's almost like this idea of we're so used to not getting what we want, and we're so used to waiting that sometimes we turn into robots and we kind of have these rehearsed coping statements on our patients, if that makes sense. And I catch myself doing it too, which is, and I want to get really comfortable this year saying, this asshole over here committed treason and should be hung by the neck until they're dead. Like that what they did to our country is so egregious that we need to have people that are crying out for this. So when Trump invariably does act, he doesn't look like a tyrant
Right.
that is running roughshod. He's actually meeting the demands of we the people. And so I guess the risk that I'm going to have now, because I'm usually like 6 months ahead of people, is I'm going to start risking that call more loudly, because it has to happen. And I used to actually be a guy that was not a death penalty guy. Something about my libertarian Christian.
No way, eh? Really? Oh my.
Well, I mean, it was more philosophical to me. Like that person's going to go to hell. Let's give them every chance they can to hear about Jesus. I have backed off that position completely. And it was the undermining of our entire civilization through treason that I saw how devastating the effects were. The devastation of the lies related to the jab, the genocide, that I'm sitting there going, not only am I pro death penalty, I've been cured of that. I've told people that I want to be there. I want to see it. Like, and I'm not sick. I'm not deranged. I don't have like this blood loss, but like the grievous injury that was committed to our country, there should be a sober watching where the American people are forced to watch what these a-holes did, and more importantly, see the consequences. And the reason why that's so important is if we want to have a seasonal time of refreshing and blessing, that length of time will only last as long as we can remember what they did to us. And if we're so quick to forgive and sing kumbaya and all those things, 4 years from now, we're going to be way worse than we were in 2020. So I personally have traveled to 49 states, and I have been underwhelmed by the caliber of patriot courage that if people don't want to create the moxie within themselves, scare the hell out of them with the shock and awe that's necessary when you betray your countrymen.
You said 49. Which is what's the one missing state, sir?
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. I never got an invitation to go speak there.
Okay, all you West Virginians out there, call them up, look them up. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't mean to occupy the soapbox, but I mean, that's something that I'm like, when you throw yourself at a problem for 5 years plus, and I've been fighting this fight, a decade even before that, if people know my history, but it really is this idea of we're not up against people. People can talk about Obama all they want. They can talk about Biden. We're up against ancient evil. We talk about the spiritual high places. We talk about princes and principalities. They don't care about the puppets that they're wielding. They can discard them in a heartbeat. And so if we're going to have this vision for hundreds of years or generational blessing, we need to up our game and know exactly what we're fighting against. It's not George Soros. Yes, he's evil, but I'm more interested in who's got the strings in the spiritual realm that's pulling these people and ushering in this demonic globalism, this demonic new world order, all of these things. And it's such an epic fight. So in some respects, Q is kind of just the appetizer to warm people's brains up to start thinking about things that are so mind-bending, so earth-shattering about who we are as Christians, who we are as heirs to a king. And it really comes down to a kingdom of heaven against the kingdom of darkness. And if we don't operate that way, we're not really in battle.
It's going to be biblical. Hugh says
Yeah.
it. It's be biblical.
Yeah.
I really believe that. Well, you got all that. Look at that with the Muslim Brotherhood stuff, the Somalian stuff coming out now. You got Mondami put his hand on the Quran just the New Year's, like right after the bell struck 12, and he had Letitia James of all people swearing him in as the new mayor of New York. You can't make this up. I mean, how sick and evil does it have to get for people to wake up and say, you know, this is infiltration. This is a full blown insurgency right here in your face, brothers and sisters. And their religion does not like us at all. Like, let's be blunt about it. It's a show that I did want to do. I think we'll do that obviously maybe next week, Kyle and Melzie. Do a little more digging on that. But the things that I've been reading about their religion versus us being spiritual in our religion, they don't want us on this planet, folks. This is the war we're in. It's a biblical war, just like Professor said. It's
Well,
bigger.
I invite you all to watch if you haven't. I did a kind of the original Crime Syndicate, which is Lucifer, and the different iterations of how mafia really adopts the same strategies as the first criminal syndicate. And when you start looking at the church or different religions, it's just another manifestation for the same kingdom of darkness. So, you know, we will sometimes deceive ourselves into thinking, well, we don't have that problem in my church. We don't have that problem in my system of government. And it's like, oh, no. That same satanic spirit can infiltrate a Christian church, a Christian denomination, the Muslims, the communists. And so Satan's so crafty that he will weaponize whatever environment that you're in and find the blind spot. And so, yes, we've got this Muslim entity that is dangerous, but I just kind of want to get back to this point where, like, you and I both know that we can spot the Marxist miles away. So, like, I'm not scared of AOC or Bernie Sanders because I can see him coming. The Muslim Brotherhood and all that stuff is so gross and perverse that I can kind of see it. I think we really have to be very, very cognizant of that Python spirit that operates within Conservative Inc., within MAGA, because that's going to be the snake that suffocates you when you because it looks so much, it talks so much like the way that we do. It's like going to a Turning Point pep rally with all of the pyrotechnics. There are dangerous seedings that are taking place on the machines, on elections, on how we should view Trump. And it's not coming from the Muslims, guys. I just want to let people know that our biggest battle is the more subtle and harder to identify Python that's within Conservative Inc. And yeah, so we can fight the Muslims, we can fight the ideology, the radical nature of it. I think it's so overtly there to see with Nick Shirley going to the daycares and knocking those billions of dollars of fraud. I think that's for the normies, honestly. I think that's for the people that aren't very smart and they go, that's wrong. But for the shepherds, we have to constantly be looking at, okay, where are the areas of influence that perhaps even I've missed? And what's going to be the thing that trips up Trump's agenda going forward? What's going to be the person that inserts himself into his inner circle, if you will? And, it's worth pondering because I think we all want to land the plane and have 2026 truly be the year of accountability. But I'm already thinking ahead to 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030. And the reason why I think about this is when I look at even the grand birthing of the United States of America, as soon as we achieved this miracle, almost instantaneously, we saw the systematic erosion of this great idea. The Alien and Sedition Acts from John Adams. Almost immediately, we still had the great sin of people in bondage through slavery. So even when we kind of acquire the great victory that I truly believe is going to come this year, we have to understand that Satan is a marathon runner. He's like, okay, I'm going to wait for the pendulum to swing this way, and I'm going to look more like MAGA and more like Q and all the victors. I'm going to look more like you than anyone's ever looked. And that's how he gets in there and starts, perverting the victory. And so I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something that worries me and keeps me up at night.
Thank you for sharing, Professor. Definitely appreciate you. Kind of that fine line is like, we definitely want to see this justice, and I think it's necessary, but it's also like we were supposed to not be the ones doing that. That's so it's just that fine line, like allowing things to play out, but also taking action. And we appreciate you for sure. We've always said too, great knowledge is great power, and great power comes great responsibility too. So that's why we're always trying to be careful with certain information. And interesting, your perspective. I would think some people maybe be cautious of bringing the Q stuff around you just because then here come the attacks with it. But you said, maybe they didn't want to get humbled or hear, so that was interesting.
Well, maybe. And look, I could be wrong on, look, I've been wrong on lots of stuff.
Nobody knows
that, but I think that's why when we open this conversation, it's really important for people to hear kind of my processes is that, yes, I want things to be done by the book. Yes, I want due process to matter. Yes, I want Trump to be vindicated into history. And so hopefully people don't take from this like this reckless lust for justice. I'm just saying that it's got to happen for it to have the effect, because everyone here, the biggest frustration, you look on any social media channel, is where are the freaking arrests? Where's the accountability? And I think that's also a metric that the Q team and Trump is looking at. There's probably this kind of outrage meter. And once it gets to that point, it's like, okay, we're going to be inoculated and we're going to be seen as liberators, not as a forceful hand that's imposing a political retaliation. Instead, it's got to be seen as a deliverance. And when we see the evil and the nastiness of the Epstein stuff, everything else, then he's going to be seen as a liberator. He's got to be seen that way. But it's always kind of weird when we have to be cognizant that it's a psyop. They're actually developing and creating the narrative. And that's where it's you feel kind of icky, if that makes sense. It's like, I know in my own mind how the masses have to see this great liberation. And then when you can actually start taking a step back and seeing how they're planting the seeds to create that narrative, there's a genius there that's unparalleled, but it's also kind of like, how much of this is real? How much of it's fake? And that's where I get a little bit more sensitive to things like Tina Peters. It's like, at what point do good, honest people that didn't sign up for the movie get treated as expendable collateral damage? And so I think that the point, or maybe the way to leave this conversation would be, please don't forget about Tina and the people that didn't know what Q was. They just chose to do the right thing in their individual lives to stand up against tyranny. And I just hope that the Trump administration doesn't see them as expendable. There's certain people that are worth saving. There's certain careers that I think should be rescued. I'd like to have mine back. Yeah, it's going to be a heavy year. And I think the stakes, you're going to see the blackpilling exponentially increase if we don't see something in the next 3 months. I think that's just natural. You're probably already seeing evidence of that right now. And God, it's got to be the year of something where it's tangible, something that we can see. Because I think we're at that point. I think the word that we all like to use is the precipice, right? We're at the precipice of MAGA is ready to implode. It's like, that's how fine the edge is that we're walking right now. It's either at the verge of just completely imploding and cannibalizing itself, or we see the accountability and it's going to be the strongest that it's ever been.
Oh yeah, sir. That's what we called for this year, was accountability. We want year 2026 to be the accountability. And I say too, we take accountability for our own selves, our own sovereignty, our own finances, our own health. And then that obviously gets reflected in our outer world. So we're very appreciative to have your time as well. I got one last question, if we can, then maybe we'll wrap it up. I don't know how much time you got, but let's say that 2020 is exposed, fraud vitiates all. What does that look like, sir? What happens next?
Years ago, when I first kind of had the insights that I thought there was more there to Trump, and again, I was a novice on all things Q. But I had the good fortune of meeting him and spending some time with him in person. And to meet him is to see authority and someone who has far more power than you just can't fake that kind of moxie. And I've looked at a lot of people sitting on a stand that have been under oath. You can't fake it, not for long, not for 8 years or 10 years. So I remember thinking in May of 2021 that if I saw victory, that I'd run out in the streets and scream with absolute joy. I mean, that's probably been tempered because I'm so tired. That was 2021. But I like to think there's part of the American people that needs to shout for joy, that we need to go out of our homes and just yell with like a battle cry of joy for the deliverance. And I'm being really, really serious. Like, we have been so used to bad news. It's kind of like the kid that's approaching the Christmas tree and he's been praying for a train set, and yet there's a chance he's going to get a Pez dispenser. And we kind of brace ourselves to be disappointed, and that's natural. But I'm really wanting to see something that's so definitive that it's more than I told you so. It's basically a sweeping through the nation of every slanderous lie gets rebuked. Every snake news reporter gets put in his place. Mass firings of all the people that should be fired. Mass restoration for all the people that sacrificed and did something for their nation when it counted. So my vision and my prayer is we get to see that this year, and we get to appreciate this great saving work that is really God ordained. It's really a work of the Holy Spirit. And then shortly after that battle cry and that joy, there is a need for we the people to put our hand to the plow and get to work, to do the work of self-governance. We talk about these ideas of self-governance, but what does it look like? And I think what's beautiful about the past 5 years is we actually know the leaders that should be put in positions of representation. And it's none of the people that are running for office that we can see for the most part. It's you. The people that actually deserve a chance in navigating the fortunes of our country. We've met them. There are so many unsung heroes with common sense that did everything for the right reasons, and they've got 5 years of tape that shows that they're the right person to run elections, to be the Secretary of State, to be the next governor. How? Because you've looked at how they've governed their time, their resources, their wisdom, and there should be a discernible impact that they've left where, you know something, we are better off for, Kathy O'Brien opening her mouth about MK Ultra. We are better off because of Joe Altman risking his company and outing Eric Coomer, even though it's basically destroyed his life. We are better off for all of these different people. Mike Lindell, you just throw in the names. And wouldn't it be so cool to start doing like that 5, 10-year, 15-year, 20-year plan in the future where like you start having wise representatives that really understand that the scriptures talk about government being on the shoulders of Jesus, like having a kingdom mentality where let's get beyond even the constitutional system. I mean, some of the things that Trump put out there was really wild. He talked about maybe there's going to be a day where we don't have elections. Like, what does that mean? I've seen several clips where, you could talk about maybe it's not elections like we've had before, but maybe this gets back to that no party dynamic where people just kind of understand intuitively it's either Washington, Adams, or Jefferson that's going to be the president, right? How cool would that be if we kind of had that figured out for America going forward for the next, 10, 15, 20 years? So a lot of the stuff that I've been working on in these professors' record videos, again, I could be the biggest fool. Where a year from now, people are going, boy, was that guy crazy. He was doing some serious drugs. But I'm trying to cast a vision for what's on my heart, which is I really want something for my daughter, for my sons, that is better than even my childhood. I love the 80s. I mean, I love being a kid that had, could go out and ride his bike. And there's this kind of nostalgic idea of what America was. I was kind of on that last bit of the generation that kind of remembers how cool it was to be American. And I really believe it when Trump says the best is yet to come. I think he got a prophetic download from the angel Gabriel. I think Gabriel showed up and said, this is what's going to happen. Just do this, this, and this, and you'll save the country. And so that's my word of encouragement for this new year.
Nice. And and there's a Q drop that I don't know whether you meant to step into it or not, but it's actually it was a beautiful comm from the boss, from Q Plus, from DJT, just before Christmas, when he sent all military 1.4+ million military personnel a check in the amount of $1,776. And Kyle, if you don't mind bringing that Q drop up, it's at the bottom of Diggers, and let's read that for Professor Clements, and basically exactly what he said, almost word for word in that Q drop. Hence, we have to go back into the past in order to see the future. And I feel the same way you feel, Professor. I think we all do. I think you spoke on behalf of all of us that have been fighting our asses off all this time, some more than others, but I think we're getting closer and closer to that precipice and to that brink. And this year, 2026, will be glorious. It will be life altering. And that Q drop, #1776, I think is the direction we're heading. So Kyle, without further ado, if you want to read that for the professor, and then let's find out how we can donate and help Professor Clements and everybody here that has not yet followed him or seen some of his work from many years gone by. It's impressive, more than impressive. But yeah, go ahead, Kyle, when you're ready. Read that Q drop.
Put me on the spot here with the old difficult post here. We're gonna go to the Declaration of Independence. Test our wordsmithing here. So 1369, it's in a handful of drops here. #1776. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute no new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed to. Again, we'll take the abuse as long as it's not so bad, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off these assholes in such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Then we get a link there with Sessions, and we fight there too. So very interesting with the possibly another Declaration of Independence signed. I don't know even know where to start. I know you kind of sidestepped if 2020 is nullified, where we go from there, but it's been a lovely show for so far. Anything to add on those last little tidbits, little tiny tidbits?
No. I look. It's weird. Like I've just been given a front row seat to be in front of really people that are above my punching class. And so I've just been a witness. I feel like God has given me a platform just big enough to see what's going on, record it, and not forget. And so I think that's why I've been put on this earth, is to place mark, record, distill, and really point to the saving work of what God's doing for this nation. And so I'm just incredibly thankful that you all invited me on to the show to talk about these things. It's all I think about. This is all when I get off this interview, I'll be working on the next project. I'm going to DC this week to lay flowers for Mickey Whithoff, who had her daughter Ashley Babbitt tragically murdered. They're other people that were murdered that day that have not been restored. And so that, it's another day. It's just another day to kind of create tape. But as far as helping, what I do, I kind of come to the point where I just know I'm unemployable from the lawyer work. That was a hard pill to swallow, but I've just gotten to the point where people can Google my name and judges hate me, attorneys hate me, and I can't service my clients in a way that really can account for that. I don't have an answer for that, if that makes sense. And it's just not fair to them. So it's kind of put me in this place where I'm able to do a lot of pro bono work behind the scenes for good causes. But my income right now is purely tied to the Substack. And praise God, he's made it worthwhile. Like I've got enough small dollar sponsors that I can keep doing what I'm doing, which is cool. But it's kind of a really weird setup. So most people offer incentives and exclusive access and all those things, and they treat kind of the paid class differently than the free content. And I think God told me, don't do that. Just get whatever you have out there to anyone who wants it. So it's absolutely free for folks. You don't get any extra perks if you become a paid subscriber. What you're doing is you're basically allowing me to not fill up my videos with sponsors or promo codes, and you're actually paying it forward to allow people that really need to hear the content for free. So it's like that's it. I mean, I basically work for We the People now, and on Substack you can subscribe at $8 a month, so 2 fancy coffee drinks, and I try to give weekly video short films that accompany the articles I write. I do all of the editing for the most part, so I do all the writing. It's super time sensitive or intensive, and some days I can't quite get it all together before Sunday's out because some of these projects are just mind-boggling. I never thought I'd be covering some of the stuff that I'm covering, but I'm trying to be really, really ambitious and tackling things that are big. So this weekend we'll be on the People's Weapon. It'll be the letters of marque and reprisal. And so please consider supporting me there. If you can't support me there, just share the video, subscribe. But yeah, these are all buttons to all of my social media. So if you're on X, find me on X, follow me there. If you're on Rumble, join my Rumble channel. If you're on YouTube, same thing. But we're just trying to get the word out.
Thank you, Professor. Again, we had the site up there. Melzie will put it back up there. It's the professorsrecord.com. So go ahead and support Anon in the movement. There it is, the Professor's Record, and you can find all of his different social medias and stuff, and all of his amazing work and documentaries. And we'll keep playing them here like we do. So thank you again for your incredible time as well, sir. And yeah, we kind of didn't know, we're on the fly, so I'd love to have a chat with you some other time, maybe more private, to just cover some things, or maybe we can come out and visit you. Maybe we'll get in touch with Aaron and Cappy, and maybe
I love that. We'll go to Mesilla and get some great Mexican food.
Let's go.
We would love to hang out with y'all. No, I always love meeting new friends, and look, don't ever feel like you can't hit me up. Schedule permitting, I love having these discussions, and what we're doing is we're building a network. I mean, these are networks of freedom fighters, and the more people we can meet and spread the good word, the better off we all are. So thank you so much for having me, and you all have a happy new year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. Love to you and your family, sir. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes,
Tim.
thank
God
you
bless.
so much.
Take
God
care.
bless.
Wow, I got God bumps, man. I got chills.
All right, there we go, everybody. We'll do a little recap since he stepped out. Thank you guys. I didn't get a chance. I checked the comments a little bit. You guys are having obviously a great time in there. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully he saw some of your beautiful messages and kind words and stuff. So he didn't know we threw him right in the spotlight live. So we'll work all that stuff. That was good though. He's nice, soft spoken, but grounded information, powerful. I saw some of those comments too. Johnny Bravo said, "I never seen Kyle be quiet for so long." That was pretty funny. We love you guys. You guys are.
I saw that one too. I started laughing. Yeah, I was trying to get you to put up more Q drops as he was talking, because man, I mean, he riddled off like I brought up the 1776, but I mean, we could have brought up like 17 more Q drops just based on what he was saying. And you know what? He has read the Q drops in the past years, and he did really open up to that when he was on with Dave and Rambo about a month ago on News Treason Channel. They did really well in that session. I remember watching that.
I didn't want to distract too much, and I didn't want to miss what he was saying too. But I got a really good one you'll like, and if he watches the rest of this later, if somebody wants to make a little reel of this, here's a really good Q job you like, Tim. Actually, I just again searching different terms. All I did was you attack. I did you attack. I think I might have done it. I might have had the images on, so that you might get a different number. But the one here, back channels are important. Attacks will only intensify. You attack those who threaten you the most. Enjoy the show. So I'm going to show that one more time here. We got another one here. Q said, you attack those you fear the most. The sheer volume of attacks by the largest media corporations in the world should, using common sense and logic, indicate there is something more to the story. And again, I showed that a little bit for a second. This here's one hit piece from Reuters. An ex-academic forges a new career rallying Trump faithful behind voter fraud claims. Okay, it sounds like it might be a good article. We'll see. Scroll down here. It says, David Clements fumed over his woke university's condemnation of the U.S. Capitol insurrection. Now he's an evangelist for false theories about rigged voting machines and funded in part by donations from fellow believers. That's what it is he's making tons of money off these donations, going after as a false theories of rigged machines. Again, this is the kind of stuff we've had over the years, guys, the different attacks. And this is, again, we call it a badge of honor, but this is, again, a major hit piece just on David. He's got many other ones. But this is what happens when you keep fighting. Let me do one more line here. While Americans prepare to vote in November midterm elections, David Clements was finishing up a month-long speaking tour that sealed his reputation as a leading election denier. Again, thank you, Professor Clements, for carrying the torch for us there. But check out some other stuff when you get vindication. David, I actually deleted. Hold on, I got the one site here. I took down some so that everything was working okay. Let me bring it up. Where's the other one? There it is. This is the one I wanted to show. Look at this vindication here. Former professor David Clements sues New Mexico State University claiming vindication on vaccines. Ooh. And look at here's a little thing from New Mexico State. Face mask welcomed. We respect your choice. Again, that was nothing was legal about all of that, even the mask especially. And actually, you see in the documentary "Let My People Go," Professor Clements talking about when he was a professor during COVID, and his very first class of the year was teaching about how the mask. It's really good. Go check it out. And we know. Or excuse me, Let My People Know. Excuse me, Let My People Go. The documentary by Professor David Clements here. So, anyways, here. So he's let's see here. Much has changed since David Clements was fired from his tenure-track faculty job at New Mexico State in 2021 for refusing to comply with COVID-19 campus policies. Now he's suing the university for reinstatement, telling the Journal that since Robert F. Kennedy Jr. assumed the leadership of the U.S. Health and Human Services Department, new information vindicates positions he took against vaccine and masking mandates, like many of us too. So he probably doesn't even know how hard we go on those kinds of topics. But anyways, again, saluting to our amazing digital soldier and truth warrior, Professor David Clements, getting vindication. He's going to sue these assholes that made him lose his job over them fucking doing illegal shit. You know what I mean? So the people have had enough. And again, our karmic justice is coming around too. So here we are. I guess we're kind of waiting it out. It's kind of this weird period of waiting and also doing things and taking care of your own lives and stuff too. So what a journey, huh?
What a journey.
Incredible. And you guys don't live that far apart. So I'm really looking forward to you guys hooking up with Professor Clements and his wife and his family. And and maybe you could go a little bit live on whenever that happens. Just saying, maybe share some of those moments.
Mexican food moments.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And what I love is that, I can't believe it. Like I said, I got to pinch myself because I remember watching him all through the like from the very beginning, like when he was fighting in the Arizona fraudulent election and the Kerry Lake stuff that he brought up Kerry Lake and he was up there. And he did like almost every day. He was up there in front of these psychopaths, and he was telling it how it was. This is what we found, and blah blah blah. And all these years have gone by, and I'm watching all his documentaries and the shows, and all of a sudden he lands here on Q School today. So I want to thank Aaron and Cappy for working hard to set that up for us. And again, like I'll reiterate that none of this would have happened if we had all quit and given up years ago on what we call the Great Awakening or our future for our children and grandchildren. Nothing like this would ever happen to us. So again, I'm just getting God bumps all through this, and now we're becoming like, yeah, I've seen him before, but now we're becoming like friends. We're becoming partners. We're becoming fully united with people that we used to look up to, and we still do. But I mean, we're all in it together. No one's above the other. Q had taught us that, and it's such a beautiful, magical time to be alive right now. And yes, this year is going to be huge. That would be why. This is it. And I agree. Professor feels the same way. If it doesn't happen this year, it will never happen again in history. This is the time. This is going to be a wild ride this next 10 months, going in 10, 11 months to the election, midterm election. I mean, anything can happen, but it's got to happen. Everybody feels it in their souls. This is the time.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. So I'm actually going to go to his website. I'm going to try to find a little video on his thing, maybe, because he's got his little documentaries on there. I want to see about playing one of his little clips here.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining us too on such short notice. I know Melzie and Kyle behind the scenes. I mean, I slept in again, and I woke up and I saw the message. Oh my God, Professor!
Let me do these other few Q drops, and we'll maybe wrap it up at like 2:17 here. Also, there's other ways to find
us. You want to wrap it up at 2:17?
Hey, listen how crazy this was. We mentioned that he was coming at 2:17, and we popped in Renee. She's in Washington D.C. I wanted to let Professor know, but he was taking off. He's headed to Washington D.C. Our own Mountain Mama, Renee's out there in Washington D.C. So some sort of events going on there. I'm actually catching up. I think it has to do with the certification stuff. White Knights made some interesting mentions that also too. So keep an eye out for Professor Clement there, Mountain Mama, if you're watching. And then we want to have Mountain Mama sometime soon, really soon, maybe next week or sometime whenever she's available. Kind of even future here too. Let people know. A lot of people don't know Mountain Mama's whole story. Again, she's sitting next to Vincent Fusca behind Donald Trump on the assassination attempt, July 13th, 2024. So we got some other interesting friends in our community.
Happy belated birthday to Mountain Mama too. It was her birthday.
Happy birthday, Mama. Yes, thank you for that, Tim, bro. Also, and again, she's over on, if you're on Telegram, t.me/bootsontheground1111. Boots on the Ground 1111. That's Mountain Mama's Telegram channel. It's kind of our main hub. We got a bunch of little offshoots out there, but if you guys want to hang out with us afterwards on the Telegram voice chats, really powerful conversations over there.
Right on. So I got a question for you and Melzie. If you don't have any plans, did you guys want to do Saturday night? We haven't done a Saturday. Maybe it could be the first one of the new year.
Well, we're going to do something with Brad earlier in the day, so we should talk about that. So that's tomorrow. We could probably still do an evening, but you might have to be in. Maybe have to get Sean in here or Jay or some of you guys. Let me see here.
Let's talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see how we feel, because after
I miss Q School so much. I'm getting withdrawals.
Next week we'll be back on track. Though, I bet.
There.
Yeah, getting massive Q School withdrawal symptoms. I got to get back. Yeah. No, it's like, what a time. What a and happy new year again, brothers and sisters, to all of you. I hope I really enjoyed the festivities and the fireworks. I watched the fireworks all around the world. The number one winner, I think the best fireworks display and show this year out of all the ones I watched around the world, because I spent all day and all evening doing that, was the one out of Dubai. If you guys haven't seen that show and the fireworks display that they pulled off in Dubai this year, you gotta watch it. It'll blow your freaking minds. I mean, I've never seen anything like it before, and that was powerful stuff. But anyway, happy New Year, everybody around the world.
Let's go. All right, well, let's wrap it up. I found a video on Professor's, I think it's his Rumble channel, the Let My People Go one. It's got J6 hostages released. This was from 11 months ago. Epic compilation, though. We'll close it out with that. Then, Tim, if you want to hop on afterwards, have your notifications. Again, we're going to have our very own Dad Brad. Y'all see him in the comment section there. Do you have that graphic at all, Melzie, you want to show? There it is. And Melzie, awesome graphic designer here. There she goes. Attuned to You is we're gonna so tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're gonna try to start pretty close to 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we're gonna have Dad Brad and do some special. You're gonna show us all of it, kind of Dad Brad's skill sets.
I love the poster, you guys. It's
know,
beautiful.
cool, right?
I love your hat, Melzie. White hat. Here's another white hat.
Yeah. If you want to come out and on in, Tim, also.
Yes, we'd love to have you, Tim. If you would like to come in.
So anyways, he's going to do like a chart reading. I think he'll do my natal chart reading, but he's got some other functions, galactic things too. If y'all haven't met Brad, it's going to be a little bit different than our grounded, mainstream Q information, is more spiritual, celestial type things. Y'all want to come join us? We're going to teach that too. Or actually we're just going to highlight one of our other amazing anons, Brad here, show y'all some of his skills. He's going to do, I think, a reading on myself, Mel, and then Sonny. Are you watching? Did Sonny respond to you, Mel? If not, maybe Tim could come in.
Come on in. And Tim,
we'll figure it out.
Like
come join us tomorrow, guys.
And get a reading, it'd be awesome. We'd love to have you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I just might do that. We'll see if I'm not napping. I usually have my little afternoon naps,
Yeah, okay. Nappy time for Timmy Pooh and Matthew Q. I got him red for once. I made him blush for once. There we go. All right, let's go. We'll go to this Professor Clements. We're gonna wrap it up, and then come find us in Telegram if you want to hang out with us. And again, look for us tomorrow. But we'll talk with you, Tim, right after this. Okay, brother?
Okay, guys. Love.
Love.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help me God. Congratulations, Mr. Trump.
So this is January 6th, and these are the hostages, approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
And all of the people that are on that order must be released by the end of the day by law.
Man, can't miss today.
Martin Luther King is looking down upon us with gratitude and encouragement that we would say, let our people go! DC Gulag! Lord, you are the Lord of hosts. You are the God of gods. You are the one that upholds us with your mighty hand.
Well, if my kids were here, that would be my number one desire, of course, but they're not. So just breathing this fresh air and being with all you guys is good enough for me.
I did 3.5 years of hard time. It was an honor to do time in this regard. As it says in the Bible, if you're going to suffer, don't do it because you're a murderer or a thief. Do it because you're a Christian. And that's exactly what I think is happening here. It's in my blood as an airborne ranger not to leave anybody behind. So that's why I'm here. I got people back there, and I hope that soon they let my people go.
This is what happens when the American people come together and elect a great president. And now the exposure, that sunlight, is going to end down, raining down freedom on our protected people that are hostages, and they're going to come out heroes.
My son was assaulted by a lieutenant and 5 other guards last night. He was assaulted, punched. He was sitting in the middle of the quad, waiting to get processed and go out. Came in, they handcuffed him, they wrenched his wrist, put him behind him, they punched him. From what I understand, they threw him physically into his cell, and that's where he was for the rest of the night.
I did 45 months, 45, then it's about 1.5 years of that at the DC Gulag in solitary confinement. So we stood up for what we believed in, and I do believe it was the right thing, and we lost so much. If you don't believe in God, after what you just witnessed this past couple of years, I don't know what to tell you, man, because, it's very clear whose side God's on.
Just 4 years and 4 days is nothing compared to the sacrifice Ashley Babbitt made, and Roseanne Boylan, and Kevin Greason, and Benjamin Phillips. They gave the full measure. They died on the steps of the Capitol for the things that we represent. Our stories would have been left into the back pages of history if it wasn't for this First Amendment right that we stood for at the Capitol. You guys gave us a voice when Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and the Post, Washington Post, and all these garbage outlets turned our back on us. You guys gave us a voice, and we appreciate you guys that have stood by our side so much.
That's rock, brother.
It's not the end of, our duties here, but it's really the beginning. It's America's seen for 4 years just criminalizing patriots for standing for what is right.
This is actual, real, tangible freedom prayed for thousands of nights that we're seeing from an impossible situation, from a situation that looked dead in despair. God created resurrection power. He created resurrection power, my brother and me right here. I love you guys so much.
Promises made, promises kept.
Daddy's home.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor David Clements. Thank you, all the beautiful comments, all the beautiful people that shared out our live. We love y'all. Love, love, love. Keep your notifications on. We're going to be with Dad Brad, 3 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Let's go.